My name is Ben Thompson. I'm the art director on Hearthstone.
Hamilton Chu, executive producer on Hearthstone. Yeah, Knights of the Frozen Throne, we're really excited about. It's 135 new cards, and especially excited about this new type of card. Our first time introducing a new type of card is called a hero card, and there's these Death Knights where we imagine, what would have happened in Warcraft if all these 9 heroes got killed by the Lich King and been resurrected as these powerful Death Knights. So giving players that fantasy of having Jaina transform into Frost Lich Jaina is really cool.
In addition to that, the mechanic of lifesteal, being introduced, allows players with either by casting spells with that, or sometimes minions even have that, to heal for the amount of damage that they deal. So that's been an interesting one to see show up in decks as well now. No, I think it's just to add, as always, like any expansion going in, we really look to give players new tools, new and interesting ways to deal with metas that currently exist or deck types that they're seeing a lot of. Tools that are introduced in a new set like this really change things up and provide for new deck types again, which we'll be looking at as we go to design the next expansion.
People seem to be having a ton of fun. They love these Death Knight cards. We have these free missions that people are really enjoying playing through. We have a new set of them coming out on Friday that we're super excited about. People seem to be having a lot of fun.
I think you said it right there. It's early days, and honestly, because it's so early, we really will spend some time gauging to see what's seeing a lot of play, what's not seeing a lot of play, what player feelings are around certain cards, and even like what's fun and what's not. As that gets worked out, we'll see, and we'll figure out things as they come. It's hard to say. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the great times of about this time in expansion is that there's just so much chaos, and people really coming up with creative new decks, really all the time. Right now, Druid is seeing a lot of play, and we're also seeing a lot of people starting to come up with decks to counter it, and that's really a great part of Hearthstone that I love, is seeing the community and players get really creative with their deck building. We always keep a really close eye on balance. It's something really important to us, and we're always kind of keeping a pulse on the situation. At this time, like you said, it's early days. There's often something that feels, really powerful, and that's great. We want people to think, this deck is really fun. I can do some cool stuff. And most of the time, the community and the meta evolves, and they learn to counter it, and people come up with new decks as the cycle goes on. Sometimes there's something we need to pay closer attention to, and we will, but I think right now it's fun watching everything evolve.
I mean, it's got a personality all its own. Each expansion really has the opportunity to tell some awesome stories and get some awesome vibe out to the players, both for those who've grown up playing World of Warcraft and for those who World of Warcraft is still fairly new or uninitiated. So if you look at like Journey to Un'Goro, that was a first chance at a lot of that content and a lot of that region. Knights of the Frozen Throne is no different. Some people are actually hearing the story of Arthas for the very first time. And for those of us who aren't, we're getting a lot of really cool twists on a story that we're very, very familiar with. And to get that in the Hearthstone way and to be able to tell it in the Hearthstone way has been super fun. So that's really the goal.
Something that's been really great with Knights of the Frozen Throne is for the first time we have these sets of free missions that players can play. And so, everybody gets a chance to get in, learn some about these bosses that, we know and love from battling in Ice Crown Citadel, and getting more of a taste of the kind of character and lore and universe. So I think we're really excited about being able to bring that side of Hearthstone to players.
I think kind of running arm in arm with it makes a lot of sense, right? There's a lot in World of Warcraft that makes sense to play to and with. But at the same time, Hearthstone is strong enough at this point where it continues to add on to its own lexicon of characters. So it's always just fun to see what's offered in each set as far as opportunities in both of those. been great. I think it's had a really positive effect on just people's pack opening experiences and just how they're able to fill out their collection and just, you know, get what they're after, get what they're looking for, and that's really the goal ultimately. Every week. We play test as a team every week.
I mean, so we have a specific team of designers that their whole job all day, every day, is to look at balance and help, you know, the set get to a place where we want it to be. So, you know, we have this team, and they're working all the time. Like Ben says, the whole team pitches in as well, but we're balancing, you know, all the way through development of a set. I mean, you know, something important to us is that Arena stays a really fun way to play the game. And so we wanted to experiment and try to change things up because, you know, we thought bringing fresh experiences to players was better than just having this one stale constant thing. And anytime you do that, there's going to be some features or design decisions that some people like more than others. Maybe some work out better than ours. So we'll constantly be looking at it, but we do want it to be evolved going forward. And that means there will be kind of different decisions that people will like to different degrees.
I mean, there's certainly, it's more challenging. I mean, it is the Lich King, so there's certain a portion to that where it's like, this is one of the preeminent villains in Azeroth, you know, in its history. So certainly that's a portion to it. The intent was to create a challenging enough mission that there's a lot of fun puzzles for players to work with. I mean, the Lich King alone has 9 different ways to, you know, I won't say beat him, but 9 different ways to play against him if you look at each of the hero classes and how that changes that fight. Mage is being taken down to 1 at the very beginning of the mission, or if you're Rexar, you know, as a hunter, you're going to get damaged for each beast you have in your deck right at the very beginning of the game. Those are challenging, and they're intended to be. It certainly isn't the goal to set up content that players can't beat, but it should be something that will be more challenging than your average adventure in the past has been. Oh, from the expansion. I like Webweave, and it's for a weird reason. It has less. You're already interested.
Explain yourself.
It has like bad choice already. I can tell. It has more to do with during development of it. The picture that came back from Matt Dixon was really interesting. He had the Tauren doing the arcane kind of string game, if the cat's in the cradle. But what Nicholas Kinney on the art team did by taking that into the golden animation was nothing short of astounding, with being able to actually change the pattern of the string as he's pulling it apart, which broke the art team's mind for a couple days trying to figure out how he did that. So just that moment was really interesting to me, and I think it just made for a card that stuck in my head as, now I got to get the golden of that. It's just too cool.
Mine's going to be a little bit more boring, I guess, but I love Valeera the Hollow. I mean, all aspects of her, from kind of just the feel of the card to the art. You can see her back there. It's so amazing and badass. And her ability with shadow reflection, just the whole kit of what the design and the art put together just has such a cool feel and character to me.
So as in the past, certain interactions between minions and heroes sometimes happens, you know, very interesting. If you looked at early days, there was the Malfurion Illidan interaction that would show up with greetings brother or hello brother when they would hit the board. There are a number of interesting interactions that happen in Knights of the Frozen Throne, depending on which minions go onto the board at which time, or even which boss is in play at the same time. So we really urge players to play around with a number of different possible interactions, because there's some fun ones. It has some of my favorite in the set, or in the game to date, actually.
We're super excited about Fireside Gatherings. You know, I came from a place where one of the best ways to play Hearthstone is, you know, with friends in a kind of live setting with a bunch of people. And we really wanted to just find a way to foster that. So we started the program. There's been more than 10,000 worldwide. And, you know, we're really looking forward to putting even more behind the program. So there's some functionality we're coming out with. We have special tavern brawls on the floor. You know, here today we rolled out the first ever Hearthstone raid. where kind of everybody playing in our booth across all 3 days are working together to kill the Lich King. But having special things like this for Fireside Gatherings is one of the ways that we really want to bring and encourage people to have this experience.
It was really interesting for the art team to get the opportunity to reimagine 9 heroes that we've grown very, very fond of and accustomed to over the last, 3.5 some odd years. And as a result, it really came from the place of like, we know what a Death Knight Paladin looks like. Arthas showed us that, in the form of the Lich King. But as far as like, what does a Death Knight Mage look like? What does a Death Knight Priest look like? Those were interesting conundrums that were presented, and ultimately what we decided was, these are such strong personalities in these heroes that they're not going to manifest in very expected ways. They're going to take on even more perseverant versions of their classes. If you look at what a Death Knight Priest looks like, maybe he's just Shadow all the time. He's completely gone over to the side of Shadow and is just, almost ghostial in nature, just very, very, shadowy as a whole. If you look at Valera the Hollow mentioned earlier, that's somebody that's just completely now become a part of the shadows in which she skulked previously and stalked her prey. So all of those different setups was really, really interesting, and I know that Jamaro Kindred and others on the art team had a blast really figuring a lot of those things out, and design was super fascinated too. They'd come over all the time and check in and be like, oh my gosh, that's so cool, I'm going to write something into the the backstory for that, and just really figure out how that all worked into gameplay. It was just a really, really fun time.
Yeah, more than any other time I can remember, like just each time a piece of concept art came in, like just everybody would eagerly take a look, and it was just so just super inspiring for the field. Forever. No, but in all seriousness, there's a lot of games that have gone on for a long time. World of Warcraft is 10 plus years. Blizzard just kind of does this, Diablo, StarCraft, and we don't want to be the ones that just lets everybody down. So we really want this to be a game that has legs, goes on forever, that people can just have as something, that they used to play a long time ago, they play now, they play with their kids someday. We really want this to just be a long-term game, and we think it can be. I think the challenge now, and I think always will be, writing that balance, right? Because you need the game to be evolving, have interesting problems for players to solve, whether it's in the deck building process or within the game, while at the same time still being accessible to new players, more casual players, and I think finding a way to do both at the same time is going to continually be the challenge.
Absolutely. I mean, we have a designer on staff whose whole job is new player experience. I mean, her name is Heirin Wu, and she focuses a lot on what that new player experience looks like, what it feels like. She's constantly working with the rest of the design team to really help talk about new mechanics that they want to introduce, how those nest or work with older mechanics, from the same block. And even looking back at Wild as something where it's like, it is wild and it's intended to kind of Wild West things a little bit, but at the same time also being observant of like, players are going to go play there, and how soon should they be introduced to that Wild content if they're a new player, or should they spend some time in Standard where the the card count is a little bit smaller and kind of get used to this game, for the very first time. She has a full-time job, and I don't envy her lots of it because there's a lot of challenges there, obviously, but she's quite good at it, and somebody that we listen to all the time.